Hi there, how you doing? My name's Ollie. I'm from the Renaissance Sanctuary, and I'm going to go in to talk a little bit about how the sanctuary would work for you. So basically, before you can come away for the 4 days, what we need to do is we need to basically book in 2 3 hour Zoom sessions, and that's an opportunity for us to connect, to catch up, and for you to tell me about your life. I've got 6 hours in order to document you, and it's pretty effortless. If you've ever been to therapy and you've just clock watched and you've just literally sat there going, bloody hell, this is taking ages. The 3 hours goes pretty quickly. You know, it's like hanging out, making a coffee. You literally, we talk, we start talking about the weather, and I don't interrupt really. It's just following that lazy river of just where your mind and where it goes and what it wants to divulge. And sometimes I might just gently guide it a little bit, but it's so effortless and it goes really quickly. So once we've got that information, for me, it's just like getting the corners of a puzzle and working the way in, and then we can look at that, how then to deconstruct and reconstruct. So my job is pretty much like, imagine someone taking a TV apart, analysing all the components and putting them all back together. That's basically me. I'm here to work for you. I don't fix people. I don't give people advice. I am here to give you and help you, support you, get your instruction manual to life, a bespoke manual to say, hey, this is everything you need to know about you, how you operate, how you process stuff, how your mind protects you, you name it, everything. And we got 4 days to do that, and it's a really fun challenge because some people, the driver to do stuff is the trauma or the pain, when actually it actually predates that. It's a precursor. We need to understand about how you had the processing tools before you got to that point, and that is the mind. So the system that we operate on is called the interregnum process. So it's a case of taking yourself away from society so that you can work on yourself, and then you can go back in. So it's just changing your environment. And this place is a very safe, non-judgmental space, and I love welcoming people in it. Obviously, that's why the 6 hours work as well, because we get to catch up. You know where you're coming, you know me, and I know who's walking through the doors, and I can prepare for that, and then I can hold the space to work through getting you your own instruction manual to life. But first, the bedrock of the interregnum process is understanding the mind, or your mind. So how do I explain that in more detail? There's several ways I can do it. But I'll try and start by saying, do you remember when you see a kid, or when you were a kid and you're 3, and basically what happens is you might fall over and you might hurt yourself. Well, it's at that point, the brain and the body, it takes a couple of seconds, they talk to each other and they go, are we hurt? And then it's like, I'm not sure. And then it's like, yeah, we've cut ourselves. So that pause is us processing emotions, feelings, pain. But that doesn't last for long. As we get older, the mind is developed. So the mind's developed to protect us. And all the mind is, when I talk about it, it's to protect, defend. It doesn't want us to feel pain. So the brain, turns around and says, hey, what's this feeling? Get rid of it. And the mind goes, yeah, okay. So then it gets rid of it. So later on in life, when someone calls us names or we get bullied, we then have to then create some form of protection. And that's where the mind steps in. So somewhere in our life, whether it's in our younger years or in our teenage years, the mind steps in to protect us. Now, just to give you an idea of when I talk about the mind and the brain, if I'm going to play my guitar, blum, 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 that is the cognitive brain. If I'm going to play the piano, cognitive brain. If I'm going to go for a run, it is my brain that's going to pump all the oxygen and the blood around the body. So the mind, if we just go back thousands upon thousands of years when we were hunters and gatherers, basically, we lived in caves. We didn't have any locks on our doors, no security. We're open to the elements, animals, other tribes. So whilst we had a cognitive brain to help us, even pre or post fire, like light fires, hunt, gather, protect ourselves, our families, the mind is something that was there that was used 24/7 in our lives, 24/7. So as we're doing stuff, everything wanted to kill us. So it was always on red alert, even when we were sleeping. Have you ever been in a place where your body is tired, your brain is tired, but yet your mind works at a million miles an hour? Fast forward to the present day, we've got Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, you name it. We are overstimulated, just completely overstimulated. We're even overstimulated in the foods we eat, the things we drink. So understanding that if I said to you, hey, look at that kid there, there's a kid with ADHD. And, if I just said to that kid, hey, do me a favor, just stay there for 24 hours and don't move. What do you think is going to happen? So imagine the mind coming from a place where it's constantly being used to protect us to a time where it's actually not used. I can stay in my house all day, I can go to the shops, I can come back, and the mind doesn't need to be used. There's no fear, no protection, nothing. But of course, that's not true. So we have this thing that's ingrained in us, that's literally ingrained in us since evolution, and it's there to protect and defend us, but there's nothing to protect and defend against. If someone's going to pull a knife out at me, sure, that's fine, but not in my normal house, not when I'm walking to the shops. Let me give you a bit more of a fun analogy. So imagine the brain in a one-person cockpit, right? And it's there, it's driving along, and it's just doing its thing. All of a sudden, someone wants to fight me. And I go, oof, this isn't my job. I go, excuse me, mind? And the mind just kind of pops its head out and goes, hello, what's going on? I said, these people want to fight us. And he goes, yeah, right, that's my job, isn't it? Yeah, right, move over. So then the mind sits down, bish, bosh, bash, job done. And then he's like, right, you okay? You want to jump back in? So yeah, your brain goes, yeah, all right. So then the brain jumps back in the driver's seat, and then the mind goes back behind the curtain. But then the mind's like, oh, I really enjoyed that. Like, I'm stuck back here. There's no threat. There's nothing. I'm not doing anything. And then maybe as we get older, we have a beer. And having a beer or drugs is literally just like giving the keys of the car to your mind. It's like, it's got full carte blanche to take over. So now it's like, oh, drink, drugs. This is fucking fantastic. And it's just debauchery. Like, everything that follows is just debaucherous behavior. So now the mind, it wants more. It wants more. It's like, oh, this is like the old days, 24/7, stimulation. So how does it then manage to get the brain to move over? It plants fear. So if the mind can say to the brain, hey, he pokes his head out, he goes, hello, mate, you all right? He goes, yeah, you might want to watch out there. There's 4 kids on the corner, they might mug you. And the brain goes, whoa, that's not my point. And come on, jump in. And the mind's like, yes. And that's how it works. So if you fast forward, in your life, years upon years, all the what ifs, what if something happened to my kids, what if something to my husband, what if my husband cheated on me, what if this, all of that is your mind planting fear so it can take control. So you have this chicken and egg scenario where your mind, it just literally wants to plant more fear. And if it can plant fear, well, then it has control. And the mind is just left there like a puppet master working the body. So there are tools and there's systems we do to actually combat the mind. And it's very simple, it's very easy. If you've ever read a self-help book, or 2 or 3, who's reading the book? You or your mind? It's your mind. So that's why so many people make money off self-help books and gurus and life coaches and stuff, because you can't change. You cannot change because you don't have the tools. And that's exactly what the sanctuary has become. It's somewhere where you actually have the tools. We go back and we look at your childhood. We look at everything from generational traits and trauma. When you arrive, who are you? Who's your mind? Why is it trying to protect you? What's it fearful of? Everything. We look at the generational traits, trauma, how your parents parented you with the rule book. They were parented with their parents' rule book, and we just unpeel all these layers to understand everything about your life. And if you understand everything about your life, that's one thing. But if the mind isn't present, then there's no fear. If you can actually isolate the mind, which is exactly what we do, you can just literally collect your head with your heart and start working through things effortlessly. So imagine like when you drink alcohol, kidneys and liver, they just excrete everything out. When trauma and pain enters the body, it never leaves. It never leaves the body. So what does the mind do? The mind, it doesn't want us to feel pain. So when we got cheated on in like 8th grade, the pain of that, we're like, oh, I hate this. So the brain goes, what are you doing? The mind goes, yeah, all right, I'll hide that. And it hides the pain. It never leaves our body. Crazy, but we never work through it. When good things happen to us, we literally dance on the spot and we feel all the feels. We're like, oh, this is amazing. Yeah, I got, I'm into university. I got a first and all these great things that happen. I got married, I have a baby. But what happens when it's bad? What do we do then? We try and swallow it and push it down and we just fill ourselves up. And guess what? We have this chamber of first-rate emotions since childhood and we keep piling more stuff in that doesn't get worked through. And then eventually, guess what? We fucking snap. And then that's where second-rate emotions, guilt, shame, numbness, anger, because we're not dealing with anything. And then when we don't deal with that, then things start manifesting in the body and all kinds of stuff goes wrong. So the sanctuary, the interregnum process, when you arrive, we highlight your mind instantly, give it a name. What does it look like? When then we isolate it, then we can do meditation. And not the old meditation, not 2,000 years ago where you have to sit there, back straight, thinking of nothing. If you're thinking of nothing, It's the hardest job you'll ever do in this day and age. It's near enough impossible. If you're thinking of nothing, you're still thinking of nothing, which is nothing. So what we do is we don't think of nothing. We actually bypass the mind and go into the subconscious. And we start connecting. All our memories are all in our heads. So we start connecting the heads to the emotions. We go fishing for all the stuff that the mind has buried deep down. And we go, let's connect the two, the heart and the heart and the head. So then you're working through stuff, and you'll pull stuff up in meditation like, oh, I just remember the time where my brother ripped all the heads off my Barbies, and you're like, where did that come from? It's still in there, but it was painful at the time, so it hasn't left you. So we just start together working through all the trauma that you've had, and we go, does this serve you? Nope. How about this? Does this serve you? No. And eventually we'll get to the stuff that matters, where you're like, this is it. This is the place. This is where it hurts. And like I say to people, we don't even have to talk about, if you've got a big trauma, we don't even have to go there. Literally, imagine a rucksack on your back, and every time something bad happens to us or someone calls us a name, we put a little marble in, and then sooner or later we put big marbles in, Well, let's just say it's too painful to work on the big marbles. If we work through all the small marbles, and we can do that together very gently, beautifully, well then, that feels a bit lighter, right? We don't then, I've got a bit more clarity, I've got a bit more patience. We start turning that tap on the first rate emotions. Now we can start to breathe. So we know where you've come from. We know how you process trauma because we know about generational traits. We know where you're at. We know how you're suffering. We know how you're not coping. We can work through that. And then we can start to release the tap on all those first rate emotions and all the past, connecting the head with the emotions and the pain without the mind. And we've highlighted the mind so we know what it looks like. And then we can start to look at where you're going. What do you want to do? What's your dreams? What's your aspirations? What are your goals? And we set them. Because now the mind isn't prevalent and it's not there, well, when there's no fear. Oh, there's no what ifs, what ifs. And if it does pop its head up, we have all the tools now to actually work through that. So you can see anything way off in the distance before it arrives at your door knocking, like, unexpected. So you are now in control of your past, present and future. You're the captain of your own ship. And it's amazing. And you can do anything. And I say that to everyone, you can do anything. And this place, it's groundbreaking, it's innovative, it's progressive, and it's profound in nature because your whole life and these realizations that you understand about yourself, you can't do it twice. It's not like therapy, we keep going back. You have the tools of everything you need to know about who you are, why you're here, how you process stuff, what your mind is, why is it trying to protect you, why is it trying to sabotage you. You can't undo that. And that's why I say, if it doesn't happen in 4 days, then I haven't done my job properly. So there's so many beautiful things happening, and there's so many people struggling in this world, and it doesn't need to be like that. So understand that the mind plants fear to gain control. That's exactly what propaganda is. That's exactly what Donald Trump does. Let's plant fear. Then if people worry, then the mind gets overactive. Same thing as Hitler. How on earth? Hitler didn't wake up one day and say, I want to eradicate a whole ethnic minority. He had this vision of this Aryan race, and, heaven forbid anyone has tried to stop him. This is what he had to do in order to get there. There's so many things. Look at Netflix. There's so many documentaries. People will do anything to get what they want, their desire, but that's the mind. So once you can conquer the mind, you can pretty much conquer the world you live in. And then your heart's desire just comes into fruition. And I just can't implore people enough. Help is there. Don't suffer alone. Think you can do it. If you think, no, I can do this, I can do it, I've done it, it's you're reading a self-help book. It's not you. Your mind's reading it. You won't be able to do it fully. So help is here. If there's anything I can do, please reach out. I hope this makes sense. I'd love to welcome you here. And yeah, just realize you don't have to suffer in silence. There is everything. It's not even having coping mechanisms. It's actually just understanding it. So you don't have to cope through it. You just work through it. So it's pretty phenomenal. So I hope this is informative enough for you. I'm sure we'll catch up in a phone call, very shortly. So write down any questions you have. I'll be happy to answer them. And I look forward to working with you. Thank you for your time. Take care.